Hey guys, it's John and Jackie of OpenLove101.com. Welcome to our show. This will be another episode of Ask John and Jackie, where we take questions from our viewers and listeners from our social media pages. So, Courtney, what do you got for us today?
Awesome. So I have two questions that are pretty similar. They came from our Open Love 101 Instagram. And the questions are, what's the biggest challenge of being in an open relationship? And how do you navigate an open relationship?
Oh, those are really good questions.
Yeah.
And I'm going to
I knew you were going to do that. Accurate.
Okay, read those to me one more time.
Where do I begin?
Yeah, right.
All right. So the questions are, what's the biggest challenge of being in an open relationship? And how do you navigate an open relationship?
Let's start with the biggest challenge.
Man, the biggest challenge, and it can be a challenge. I think, well, for me, the biggest challenge was just being able to comprehend the relationship model. I grew up surrounded by, strictly monogamous examples, or what people wanted me to believe was strictly monogamous examples. And so to step outside of that and incorporate something that's non-monogamous, while exciting and exotic and titillating and, just had all of my juices going, there was still something about it that made me feel as though I wasn't supposed to be doing that. Like it was going against the norm or what society deemed appropriate for me to be doing. So for me, that was probably the most challenging initial issue that I had, was just digesting the relationship model and being okay with it. And, it's like once I was able to kind of get past that hurdle, then things began to flow a little smoother. But it was just kind of like, wow, is this something that I can actually do and not, one, turn into a pillar of salt, or two, go up in some kind of flaming glory. I had a lot of not only societal, but religious backgrounds that really, you don't realize how deep those roots go in your life until you start to challenge that, till you try to pull that tree up and you're like, holy crap, this is going to take a minute. Even though it was something that I was interested in doing, you're still, it's not about unlearning something because you've already learned it. It's about replacing what you've learned with something that's going to be more beneficial to you at this point in your life.
Yeah.
I
think, to kind of follow that train of thought, because it was challenging for me at that time, and still is, I guess, to some degree, being supportive in that transition that you were going through from the societal beliefs and religion beliefs of what it means to be a woman sexually, and where you wanted to get to, and the struggle you were having with that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, sometimes it was challenging to encourage you and to really see, because I think you had a hard time, especially in the beginning, believing that I really wanted you, that it was really okay for me to be that way.
Yeah.
So it was a little, you tell someone, I really would like to see you, with 2 men at one time, or it's okay for you in my, from my point of view, it actually turns me on if you go on a date with someone else, and it's almost like mind blowing, So here's Jackie, like, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying that. Is he really being honest with me? So my frustration sometimes, my challenge sometimes was to, how do I let you know that it's truly how I feel?
Right. Well, and that can kind of lead into like that next phase of, people being in different spaces on that path.
Yes,
right?
But I'm not there yet. That's my biggest challenge, for sure. So it's not about that, though. It's about you trusting that what I'm saying is the truth.
Well, and yeah, and that can be coming from a couple of different places. It's not so much that I don't trust you as a person. It's about the trust that I had in what I was taught growing up.
Yeah.
And those are really strong ties. Those are how we define ourselves. That's how we say who we are. And when we alter that, that's a big adjustment. That's a really strong muscle memory. Now, all of a sudden, I've gone from, brushing my teeth with my right hand to brushing my teeth with my left hand. And now all of a sudden I can't figure out how do I even hold my toothbrush, like I can't even figure out how to do it. It's that same kind of mentality. It's like, I want to do this, but somehow I'm so conscious of it, whereas before in my life, I was it's going to sound weird, I was kind of unconscious because what I was doing, I'd just done so long. And now all of a sudden I was challenging all of that. And while that was exciting, I didn't have much frame of reference for things. I didn't have much examples for what was going to happen if I tried this new thing. Because for me, if something's happening, like let's say you're driving home and you see something out of the corner of your eye and it's dark out and you roll down your window and you look, and it takes your brain a minute to even focus on what it is that you're seeing before you realize it's a little fox running down the street. But initially your brain's like, wait, what is that? What is that? Where's those files? What can I associate that with? And that's what it felt like for me, going from monogamous relationships to a more open relationship. A lot of times my brain was like, wait, what are we doing? What is this? I don't have anything. I have nothing. I hadn't built a repertoire of memories and associations that made me feel comfortable with the decisions I was making, because sometimes that was the first time I was making that decision.
I completely get that.
Yeah.
But I was talking about my challenge.
Yeah. Well, that's my challenge. And
And
your challenge is different, right?
Yes. And it was because you told me you didn't trust what I was saying was the truth. How could you want me to do these things? I'm going to do these things. You're going to up and leave me.
Right. Well, because that's
what's going through your head. I understand.
Right.
But my challenge was, how do I get you to understand that I'm being honest?
Right. And we found that the way that happened, and again, this had to do with me building basically a file of trust, was that, taking that leap of faith to try something. And maybe it was something small. Maybe it started out as fantasy talk. Maybe it started out with some new sexual positions. Maybe it started by, being kind of erotic on the phone with each other. Each time we did those things, those were small trusting steps that were kind of building this stairwell to a space where I could finally say, okay, I'm gonna take this larger leap. One, because I want to, because I'm ready to take whatever outcome is going to be at the end of that. And so even though it was about me trusting you, it was also about me trusting
of course.
me.
Yeah.
And from then, you always being there afterwards, and always being supportive. Those were ways that we were able to build that trust between us,
Mm-hmm.
which is really super important. If you hadn't done that, we probably wouldn't be sitting here having this discussion, because I wouldn't have trusted that what you were telling me was going to pan out like you said it was going to.
Yeah.
So, those initial challenges, there's so much groundwork. It can be so exciting to find this, and you want to just jump head straight into it. And in a lot of ways we did do that. But there also has to be this like slow, methodical brick laying, one by one, making it strong, really letting that, set and get firm. And that's how you get to the space that we are today. where we're sitting here and we're talking to people because we took the time to do that, no matter what it was.
Right. And then for me, the biggest challenge, that was early on. The challenge today is moving forward with things we've talked about, and then you feeling uncomfortable with something that's going on, and then having to take a step back and to be willing to do that over and over again until there's some comfortability there. And, you know, if you were to tell me, I don't want to do this anymore, this certain thing, I'd be like, okay with it. But what you tell me is, I'm not comfortable yet, but I want to do this thing, so let's keep trying.
Right.
And that can be challenging, sometimes a little frustrating.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with other couples too, from, you know, both sides, from men and women both, where one person wants to be here, the other person is moving it, you know, building that foundation at a slower pace.
Yeah.
And that's in our case, because like Jackie said, she was raised differently than I was. And I had been doing this a long time prior to us getting together.
Mm-hmm.
So I really had built foundations in different ways. You know, there were still things I had to build upon. I had to learn how to be really more understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And, but my foundation to be able to accept the things you were doing was there. You know, I'd gotten through some of those issues of fear and jealousy that you hadn't had to confront yet.
Right.
And so when that happens, when you both have these, you know, different types of foundations, you have to find some common ground in order to get through it, to get where you want to go.
Right.
And that can be challenging sometimes, because we don't, in the midst of it, in that moment, when something happens that causes one of us to feel fear, we don't really see or recognize the fear as, we won't take a step back and say, oh, this is just because their foundation really isn't solid there yet. So I get that. And so, you know, it doesn't always end up being that loving. It can, because fear sometimes comes out as, you know, it can come out pretty emotional.
Right.
And so the challenge there is to be loving through those emotions and work to the common goal together.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So those can definitely be, you know, that can be the underbelly of, you know, changing a relationship model. You know, and it's not that what you're doing is wrong, which can also be our tendency to think when we come up against something challenging. You know, if something's uncomfortable, our tendency is to be, oh, well, this isn't something I should be doing because it's making me feel this way. But you have to think back to all the times that you learned something new and the struggle that took place in order to learn it.
Paragliding is the analogy that I use often. I love to paraglide, and to jump off of a mountain, you're jumping off a mountain slopes. You're really just running down. The lift generates from your speed and the wing and the thermals coming up the mountain. You just take off, and it's not like you're just jumping off a cliff. But there's other kinds of paragliding where you're at a sea cliff that's 200 feet high, and you look over there straight down, and you have to run up and just trust that this wing is and the wind is gonna work right, and you're gonna go off. Man, it was a struggle for me. Why would you keep trying it if it's such a struggle, John? Because I wanted to see what it felt like to soar this cliff. I see other guys doing it. It looks so exciting. So I would run up towards that cliff, and then I would just like pull down on my brake lines, and my wing would collapse, and I wouldn't go. I'd be 15 feet from the edge of that cliff, and my instructor, Rob's like, come on, John. It's going to just, you know, it's just going to just trust it's going to work. And I just could not trust. And it was over and over and over again. I can't tell you. It was one day in particular, we were learning how to do this. And I kept chickening out, pulling on my brakes. Finally, I was getting closer and closer to the edge, and I get more and more fear, like, because if it doesn't, how am I going to just jump off? And then I'm running, and all of a sudden, I'm like 2 feet away. I'm getting ready to yank on my brakes again, and it lifted me up before the edge of the cliff. And then I put a little right turn in, and now I'm soaring along I just couldn't believe it. It was like, that's how it works. It was so easy. But it took that repetition over and over and over again before the fear went away enough to allow me to get to the point to where I could let the physics work. Right. And I think that's the same thing that we go through here.
It really is exactly the same thing. And you see how important how integral every piece of your story and how important every piece of that was. Like, how important it was that your instructor was just patient with you. He let you run up to the.
He wasn't patient with me.
Well, he was in the sense that you did run up to it however many times you had to, but he was there, I guess is my point.
And I think it's a good analogy to use as to why, because we get this question all the time. Why are you doing it? If you're feeling this emotion and you're having these fears, why are you guys even in this? Just be in a monogamous relationship. Why would you want to expand it? Well, why would I want to jump off that cliff with my parent? Because it is amazing. It is amazing when you're soaring with the birds. And I think a lot of our experiences we've shared together have been amazing experience with other people.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we do it, because it really opens up so much. It opens up communication with each other, trust, the honesty, the experience of being with other people. It's really an amazing journey. So if you're able to get through these fears, kudos to you, because when you get to the other side, it can be a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And as far as the navigation of it, it really is kind of like taking out a map. You really need to get comfortable with the surroundings.
What's a map?
With the topography of where it is that you're trying to go, and working together to find pathways that you both feel like that you can navigate together. I mean, it really is a lot about just that consistency, that tenacity, reminding each other what the goal is and where we're going, and being that safe harbor for each other, so that, when somebody does come up against a struggle, that they know that they can lean in and on that other person. I mean, it really is a working relationship.
We're going out of town soon on a vacation, and there's certain towns I want us to be able to see. Then I punched it into my Google Maps. When I said, what's a map? I'm thinking about, today people really use maps. I'm thinking of paper maps. We use GPS, and there are different ways to get to these different cities that we're going to see. We can take this really wide route that goes around this, sees all these little villages over here. We can go directly straight down, save some time. We don't get to see that much.
Yeah.
And the same thing with navigating the lifestyle. It's about defining where you want to be, and then talking about the ways that you're going to get there. And sometimes it's about pushing the boundaries a little bit, pushing the envelope a little bit. You don't necessarily want to see your wife kiss somebody else, but maybe after a couple of times doing other things, like, it's just kissing. What the hell? It's a light bulb may go off. It's not that big of a deal. So really, it is about communication, navigating those things, setting boundaries.
Yes.
When we're taking our trip, we're not going to go all the way over here, because then we don't have any time to spend in these other places. So we define a route that's going to give us time to spend with each other and to enjoy these sites we're going to see, and so on and so forth. And the same thing in the lifestyle. It really is about defining your goal, where you want to go, and how are you going to get there. And you may hit some bumps along the way. And so be prepared to take a different route. Don't have your expectations you're going to get to this point, in a certain period of time, because there may be some things that get in the way that you have to talk to us about. And these questions we're talking about today are really the number one questions we get in our coaching. And if you'd like to talk with us one-on-one about any of these things and other things that you might be going through as a couple, you can go to openlove101.com in our coaching link and send us in, a little information about what you're looking for, and we'll schedule some time with you guys. So anything else, Courtney?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. Wow, we did it.
Yay.
Way to go, Jackie. And thank you guys for the questions and joining us today. Once again, openlove101.com. Sign up for our email list, and we'll let you know about upcoming videos and blogs. Our YouTube channel as well. Hit the little blue bell. You'll get notifications of these videos that we're doing today. So thanks for joining us. See ya.
See ya.
Great job, Jackie. And if you like that video, please click the button below. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll give you plenty of more. Plenty of more? Kidding me? God.